Couple seconds. Okay, should be good.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay. All right, we'll call meeting to order at 6:01. Alicia, can you do the roll call, please?
Yep. Lacey Oster. Here. Cherie Link.
Here.
Michelle Lesha.
Here.
Bruce Belargen.
Here.
Lori Belargen.
Here.
Matt Foucault.
Here.
Marge Valil.
Here.
All right, the new protocols, everyone should look at them. Those are new, that we updated a month ago with our new board. So just update to everybody that they're not the same as they've been for the last 3 years. And then the district mission, together we engage, educate, and empower all learners, bridging their passions through pathways to create successful futures and positively contribute to our local and global community. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Sheree, and any second?
I will second that.
Lacey. Anybody have any comments?
No.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Agenda's approved. Next item is public comment. Mark, we have Corey.
And Becky Olsen.
Becky Olsen.
She's here.
Becky, you want to go first?
Hiding behind the podium.
Yeah. Well, we can never go first.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me come and talk here tonight. I'm talking to you as a school board and then also to our extended community beyond. My name is Becky Olsen. I'm a teacher at the high school. I teach art, grades 9 through 12. And I'm here because I need to practice what I preach. When kids come to me with a problem or something that they need to work through and talk about, I always tell them that they need to discuss it. They need to talk about it. They need to not just keep it inside. So I'm here because probably over the last year and a half, I myself have felt unsettled with my community. And partially that's how I was raised, to give to my community, to love my community, to always do the best for my community. Just a little background on me and my family. My absolute top role model, and I'll try to keep this under 3 minutes, is my grandma. My grandma was an orphan. Her dad died the day before she was born, and her mom died 2 days after she was born from the Spanish influenza outbreak. So my grandma and her 3 sisters were jostled around from relative to relative, and my grandma went on to be a foster parent to 35 children. She raised her own 3 children and fostered 35 other children because she felt this need to give back to so many others who had given to her. So we were raised with that understanding of kindness, of generosity, of doing a lot for your community. She started the food pantry in her community because there was a need, and I have really modeled my life after that same. What has been unsettling for me the last couple years in our community is this divide that has come about in our community, our school, our families. And I guess I want to talk about this because I don't think it's us versus them or them versus us. It's just plain us. And I want to present to you and our communities of all that we can accomplish if we come together with that same understanding that we're here for our community, we're here for the children of our community. I love Somerset. I love our schools, and I love our students. And if you know me as a teacher, I'm always here late. I'm always here early. Because I feel that that is something that's very, very important. So I dream of a community that stands apart from so many other communities that are wrestling with the same problem, this big divide. So I am asking that everybody come together, think of the amazing possibilities, the energy that we could come up with if we came together and worked together as a solid, united team, school, community. So overall, that's just what I wanted to talk about. And I feel like when I tell my kids that, I have to do it myself. So I am doing it myself. I'm just asking the Somerset community to come together. Focus on what we have in common. What we all have in common, our children. My same grandma said a bus driver should be the most well-paid person in the United States of America because they're transporting the world's most precious cargo. And if my grandma was here right now, she'd be standing right beside me saying the same thing that I'm saying. So I'm just begging our community to come together. Let's work together for the good of our children. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thanks, Becky.
Give her another 10 minutes.
I wasn't gonna stop that one. All right.
Probably got a lot of bus drivers calling me tomorrow.
Any questions I should have asked?
My phone's already ringing. Safeway.
Doesn't look like anyone's there.
We can no longer afford busing.
You send them the link? Are you supposed to call them or?
Maybe to try giving them a call. I can join, but it doesn't say that anyone's there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there you go. You're good.
All right, Corey. You ready? Hold on a second.
Can you hear me, Stewie?
Now we can.
Good. Okay. Yeah, I would like to continue the sentiment of the prior comment as well with the theme of unity for this year. I really think we do need to focus everything on that. And to add to that perspective, I feel strongly that we have to work through some outstanding real differences of how we think schools should, how we should work through some of our differences, opposed to just trying to solve it with happy talk and shove things under the rug, which I believe there's been a little bit too much of that the past couple of years. So a lot of us parents still feel like there are outstanding issues that need to be addressed, need to learn from some of the mistakes and things we could have done better the last couple of years, and work more together going forward. So the couple main points that I hope get addressed in the near future, hopefully more tonight. In looking at the agenda for tonight, I was not too happy to see the ESSER 3 presentation and the way that it, my perception of it is it really brings in a lot of the themes that the state is trying to push on public schools, and it seems like it's kind of connected to the funding, and I've been trying to dig through all the ESSER 3 stuff to understand that, but it is convoluted and complicated, and hopefully you guys can help clarify that for us and get more transparency. And I think it's relative to the COVID stuff related to the on-site testing, and seems like that's not getting a lot of utilization, so I hope that gets looked at. It'd be really interesting just to know what the numbers are, and to know how we're making more numbers-based decisions on this stuff going forward, because yeah, we're all looking forward to moving out of this pandemic stuff and move into a phase of coming back together, and with the ESSER 3 funds and the presentation that I think Mark is going to give tonight, I just ask you to think about some of our past comments and frustrations as parents in regards to the COVID policies, specifically discrimination of the unvaccinated. That was the one that I think really pushed a lot of us over the edge of, this is really out there in terms of really being
20
not even
seconds,
close to
Corey.
something we should have considered, so. Thank you for considering that, and look forward to listening to the rest of the meeting. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Corey. Knew it was 20 on the record. All right, thanks for the public comments. Again, reach out to Mark and or Lori if you would like to make a public comment. All right, next one, post-prom update.
And I have to apologize that they sent the JV team here to talk to me. Stacy Below is the expert on all things post-prom and could not be with us tonight. So I am just gonna run you through the information that I've heard her talk with so much passion about for so many years now. First of all, let's talk about why we do a post-prom. I think all we'd have to do is maybe rewind to our own high schools to be able to answer that question pretty logically. But it provides a safe place for kids to gather. And it brings kids and the parents who volunteer and the community members who sponsor it really together for a night of safety and fun and bonding and kind of one of those just really great Somerset experiences. The schedule in the past has worked that kids are picked up at the high school right from prom, and they head right over to the center from about 12:20 to 4:15. That party runs at the center with all sorts of activities that I will show you. And at 4:30, the kids are picked up from the center and transported back to the high school, hopefully getting back here too late to get in any real mischief. Activities have included things like inflatable games, minute to win it games. There is a casino where kids play to earn tickets, and they can use those tickets to buy items that are largely donated by the community. Oh, did you see that cute boy in there? Ooh, Britain. There's bingo. They can buy prize, or they can win money to buy prize tickets. There are games that they play. You can see some Jenga, some chess. And all kids who attend will leave with a $25 gift card, as well as hopefully some prizes. A lot of this fundraising falls on this post-prom committee. They work hard at it, they work year-round at it. It is mainly through donations from local businesses, who also donate the prizes and the food. The budget works kind of as follows here. It is about $1,500 to rent the center. That's the money that they're hoping to find from the board. Food comes in at $900, the rentals are about $1,500. The grand prizes are $3,000, the activity prizes are $5,000, and the $25 gift card, assuming about 200 kids come, which is typical, comes in around $3,700. So total cost just under about $10,000. And I believe what she wrote was that she's looking for money to cover that facility charge. That gets them a good way in starting to make sure we can ensure that we have the space, and then continue moving forward and gathering donations for the rest. I'm happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
So it's just the $1,500 is all that you're looking for?
Correct.
From the board?
Yep. Any other questions?
Good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for presenting.
Thank you. This was a possible action item, so can we take a vote on it this evening, or?
Yeah, I mean,
You can.
we could.
Okay.
It will be on the regular session for voting, and that's, Stacy has assured us that's within plenty of time to deliver the contract.
At the end of the month. Okay. All right, Abby, civil services update.
Just a preface of, this is the first one of our budget information sessions, and we started doing these a few years ago So you get an idea of the different departments and what's in their budgets. So when things come up for approval, it's not a unheard of thing that, you know, we don't need to set it aside and go through another explanation of it. So this is your time to hear what's in the budget and ask questions and, or even afterwards and that. But again, that was the basis of this, so you get to hear it all up front ahead of time.
Yeah. So in the pupil services department, my biggest budget, of course, is my special education budget, and that's the IDEA entitlement fund. And I actually worked with two different budgets. The flow-through supports students 3 through 21 who are supported by an IEP. And then there's another, and I'll get into that amount that is set aside just for our preschoolers who are in our early childhood, so our 3 to 5 year olds, that is used specifically for their programming. So that's what I'm talking about. So flow-through is what's called my budget. It's from the 3 to 21 year old. And I put in here, the amounts that are on here are actually my amount from last year. And typically with special education, and I'm going to talk about this at the very end, maintenance of effort, the amounts kind of generally stay the same. It's my budget is discretionary, so what I have this budget for, I cover it, and if whatever isn't covered, I use it out of the general or, you know, carryover funds, and I'll talk about that. So I kind of want to give you some ideas. It's typically around this amount. I can't project, like, I can't plan next year because I don't know what students' needs are going to be for next year, but it's typically within this boundary of amount. And so this budget covers different categories. Our purchase services, you can see how that's our bigger amount. That is our transportation, our special ed transportation for the year. It's also we work with 2 or 3 other districts. We have a consortium with them to provide physical therapy services for our students. I also have to do a set-aside amount to support students who are supported by a service plan, which is similar to an IEP at St. Anne's, our private school. So there's a calculation that we do every year based on the number of students supported by an IEP there and here, and it gives me an amount of money that I have to set aside designated for services to support students there. Any travel costs for myself, for teachers, and when I say teachers, I mean my whole special ed staff, speech and language, occupational therapies, physical therapists, you know, school psychs, myself, special ed teachers, for any of their professional development that they may go to. Our non-capital objects, these are things, our teacher budgets for all of those that I mentioned before, what they have for their year, for their to use in their classroom or any other professional development that they want to attend. And then I also set aside about $6,000 it runs typically for my intervention software that I have, that we use with our students for their special ed time and the interventions for math and reading and some behavior. Capital objects, I have not used this for many years. This is if we had to acquire a whole separate building or do big construction to support a student, but we haven't. I don't foresee that being a need either in the next year. And then just our other objects, this is any dues and fees for our speech and language pathologists to keep them current with their license. They have to be a member of an association, so we pay for that. Any travel, again, can go in here for staff and for me. Any professional development can go under this category for that too. And then we pay for the special education aid license for our support staff. It's $100 for each new support staff, and then we renew that for them when their time's up as well. And that goes in that category.
Abby, what is an SLP?
Speech and language pathologist. Yep. Similar categories for our preschool, and you can see the different amounts. This is a smaller set of amount of money, and typically we have a carryover. So I'm able to carry whatever budget I've not spent in a year, I'm able to carry that over into the next school year. And use it as I need to in my discretionary budget. So this is very similar categories. This year, well, starting last year now and going forward, we do use preschool more of that for our physical therapy consortium that we pay, because the majority of our students that get seen by a physical therapist are in our early childhood, and our little ones is when they usually are seen. So we kind of shifted that amount to that category in the last year or two. Oh, sorry, wrong way. So we also have some contracts for outside services. That's our physical therapy that I talked about. A grand total, it'll be $18,650 for this year. That's probably what it'll be for next year too. It doesn't fluctuate every year for us. We do contract with CISA for our vision services, because we have so few students that use vision therapy or vision services. They don't do vision therapy, but they do support them for their vision needs and their orientation and mobility services. So we just contract with CISA, so that amount fluctuates depending on how many students we have that need those services, how much of those services that student needs to be. Oh, geez, this thing is sensitive. How do I go back? Thanks. I'm gonna just put this down. We also have some students that are placed sometimes in outside specialized programs for a variety of reasons. Their needs may be higher than we're able to support, so they go to another facility, and we do pay for those. And then the transportation to and from, sometimes we need to pay for that as well, and it can cost monthly. You can see the amounts between $1,800 to $3,300 a month for those students.
Is that what we're spending this year, or is that 18,000, well, last year's budget?
So this depends on where they go.
Okay.
They may go to a place that's only gonna cost us $1,800 to send them, or there's other places that we have to send them that are more expensive based on the need of the student. And again, I can't project, because I know who's there now, and they may be coming back, and they may not come back. It just depends on how the student's doing, or we have another student who may need services elsewhere too. So it's hard to tell you, like, next year I'm gonna spend this much money, and that depends on the students and the needs that we have. The other piece is called Coordinated Early Intervening Services. This is a set-aside amount. I have to set aside up to $10,000 that I work with Ms. Trish on. And this is our early intervention services. So we can set aside and buy intervention and support for students. And this is the goal of this, and we have to track our students that we use this for, is so that they don't go down into special education. We catch them early. We get them caught up, and then they're with their general ed peers without needing the support of an IEP. And we can use them in math, reading, and behavior. Again, I can't project, because it depends on the students that we have that are coming, our little ones. We try and catch them when they're little and what their needs are. But we have to set aside we choose to set aside up to $10,000 to support those programs. So I kind of talked about maintenance of effort earlier. So that's what I spend my discretionary budget, what I just went through. There's also this amount. Last year we spent about $2.9 million from outside of that grant discretionary funds from the district to then pay the $2.9 million. The actual budget for this year and next year, is always around 2.9. So maintenance of effort, I just want to talk about that for a moment. By law, a district has to pay roughly around the same amount of money from their their general fund or outside my discretionary budget every year to support students who are supported by an IEP. And they have to show the effort that we're supporting them. There are ways to lower our maintenance of effort, and that's through if someone retires and we hire someone at a lower salary. If a student who has a lot of needs moves out and we're not paying for those needs any longer. So there's ways to lower our maintenance of effort, but from year to year we have to match closely to the same amount of money being spent by the district, not through my special ed funds, but the district paying for them has to show every year the similar. And so in this pool of money comes all the salary and benefits for our special education staff, our school nurse, our counselors, any homebound teachers that we pay, their salary goes through them. We put our individual pupil transportation to and from outside services, outside placements in this pot of money. Oftentimes we'll pay for that out of this pot of money, because that helps us meet the maintenance of effort, is that when we pay for a student to attend another facility. And then we pay for our CISA services through this as well, because all of these help us maintain our maintenance of effort. It's a complicated web, special funding is. And so these are the other areas that are supported with me out of pupil service. Oh, can you go back? Oh, darn, this thing's touchy. And these are smaller pools of money without elaborate budgets. So I do support the CISA. Through CISA, we do Title III. That is our bilingual students support. We have a gifted and talented. We have a very small teacher budget for supporting students in gifted and talented. Our nurse, can't even begin to tell you where I was at with last year and this year, but hopefully going into next year, we might be able to project a little better about what our needs are now. And that's with supplies and professional development for them. Any homelessness, and basically that's our transportation, because we transport students who are experiencing homelessness to school, to and from school if needed. That's where that's the biggest cost for that. And then I also have Carly Ullman, who is our mental health coordinator, and she has like a teacher's budget to help support professional development that she may attend, or if she wants to bring something to the district, we use that discretionary budget for that. That's a lot. Any questions?
So is your flow through that 350,000, is that included in the 2.9?
No,
So that's separate.
separate. Yep. That flow through is my discretionary to use as the needs that are seen in our district at that time. And then the 2.9 is the additional amount the district pays to support special ed or pupil services, which include the counselors and school nurse and those kind of things. Yep. Good question. Any questions? If you do, feel free to email me. I'm happy to. It's a lot, I know. Thanks.
Yeah, if you ever go through budget reductions, this maintenance of effort is going to come up. You know, everything outside of special ed, you have discretion to cut, do what you want. When it comes to special ed, because of maintenance of effort, it's hands off. You're very limited on what you can do there.
The homeless piece, that transportation, so that's a family that's displaced, right? We'll transport them to and from if they were a student here?
Yep,
Is there a,
that's a
how
lot.
far,
There-
wherever they end up?
Yeah, it can be far, far away. Yep, if the family chooses that they would like their student to continue in our school district, and even if they're 2 hours away, they still would have to pay for that transportation.
Is there a criteria on how, like that placement? I mean, they can't decide that they move someplace?
Well,
What
it's a,
qualifies as homeless placement?
oh, so it's called the McKinney-Vento Act, and so there's a whole list of things that qualify a student or family for as experiencing homelessness. And there's a lot of services that kind of get ignited then, like, free meals, free transportation, get back, because the goal is to keep them in their home school. Support with services that we can, and when they move far away, it's become, do we have to transport them? Yeah. But then it just becomes more of a collaborative conversation with the family to talk about, is it really best for them to be traveling 2 hours before and after school? Or, is this temporary? Is this where you think you're gonna reside for a while? So it's a conversation with them.
And then, so the 349,000
Yeah.
and the 2.9, those are two separate budgets?
Yeah.
And is there a different budget cycle they run on? Like the 349,000, is that, so this is next school year budget we're talking?
Yep.
Okay.
So it'll be from July to July, and they both run July to July.
Okay.
Yep, but it's.
Just separate budgets?
Yep, two separate budgets,
Okay.
yep, supporting the same stuff.
Right.
Questions?
Anything else, Dan? Nope. Marge or Lori, do you have any questions for Abby?
No, I don't. No, thank you. I'm good.
Everyone else good? Okay, all right. Trish, 22-23 district calendar.
Yes. So it was attached to the agenda. I'm just gonna quickly run through some of the changes that you might see. Each year, when we look at the calendar, we come together collaboratively, we survey our staff, we ask for input on certain days, and then we also kind of try to take care of issues that we've had along the year that maybe we could make better for everybody. So if you look at this calendar, we're still playing a little bit with the conferences because principals are talking to their building leadership and to their staff. But starting in August, just to let you know, last year we moved our new staff in service up a week away from our teacher in service, and it was glorious because it gave everybody a breath to come in, teachers to find their new rooms, and support staff, meet some people, and then step away and then come back and we take off running. In September, you're gonna see a Monday PD day. We moved all of our days to Mondays. Our professional learning days, we try to do once a month. They are placed near places where we can help with our continuous growth for educator effectiveness. They're also placed to try to make it a little bit family friendly. So for example, on President's Day, we have an in-service day there because we know some of our families are off on President's Day. So trying to make sure that we extend natural breaks with a PD day on that following Monday, just to kind of help out, be a little more family friendly. Originally, we have been hearing about the long stretch between, and Lacey, you can attest to this, that long stretch from workshop week to Thanksgiving. Everyone getting back in the thick of things. And the week in October, our elementary teachers have already put in a full week. And we're also going to do middle school conferences there too. So much like MEA in Minnesota, we took that day as a break for everybody, that Friday, and coming back to a PD day on Monday. So that's new this year. We surveyed our staff, they said yes please, for the most part. And as you roll forward, we originally went straight till Christmas Eve with student contact days, or for our winter break, and then got a lot of feedback saying, excuse me, we need that day. So being kind of receptive to our staff and their travel needs and trying to be family friendly for everybody. So if you flow through, the other big decision maker is spring break. We love spring break here in Somerset. ACT is our big test that we take, big high accountabilities test, so we have to work around that. ACT next year is that first week in March, and the makeup ACT is the third week in March. So that left us with a couple choices. One being to back spring break up to Good Friday, which we traditionally have always had off. And that would save a teacher contract day, because we also have to fit the number of contract days onto this calendar. That was a big no. It was just too late. Waiting till April to have a spring break was the feedback that we received. So we placed it in the middle of March and strolling on through. Because we ended up putting December 23rd as a day off for all staff, we ended up having to extend our student days till June 2nd. So kids will be out the first week in June. Staff will have a half a day in service on Monday the 5th. And that was also in the survey. So if you look at the bottom in the notes, this is your calendar. This is not what will go out to our public when it is finally approved. You'll see how the teacher contract days work for those of you that are new to the board, how many teacher contract days there are and how they're broken down. We do have one floating PD day for our teachers. That'll be sometime in the summer. We will need that because of our new ELA adoption. That is that's an intense time of a lot of time with the vendor, with the publisher, with the materials. So our K-5s and probably pre-K will be participating in a full day of let's bring on a new ELA resource. The other staff, we are working on PLC, Guaranteed and Viable Curriculum, as well as HRS Level 1. So lots of really good stuff going on there that one day will take care of in the summertime. As this is a draft, are there any questions?
Can you just talk about those, the August 30 and 31, splitting the
Yeah.
start days? That was new this year or last year, and why
So-
continue it?
Yeah, so we, at the elementary, we've always had kind of orientation days. When COVID reared its head, we ended up bringing back students in stages because we then oriented them to new procedures. It was wonderful. It was wonderful because we got to connect with kids. We had less students in the building. They were able to spend more time with our specialist teachers. It's kind of that soft reopening. By state law, we can't start counting instructional minutes till September 1st. So that really left us to still use those days as student contact days, kind of that welcome back, here's what it should look like, kiddos, building community, and bringing kids back in stages. Really exciting and worked well for the high school as well, as the kids are getting to know the Flex Mod, getting to know the new buildings. We had our new buildings that we had grand openings with and so on. So all staff, we've had great feedback. And then everybody's back on here September 1st.
Was there any talk about continuing, I know this year, half of the year, the PD was on like Fridays and half was on Mondays?
Mhm.
And I've just heard from families that it was nice sometimes to not always have a Monday.
We've been doing half Fridays, half Mondays for the last several years. And mostly because when we try to attach it to be family friendly to a long weekend. Most of our breaks though, coming back, that Monday afterward has been really wonderful for staff too. If you ask our staff, you'll generally get almost a 50-50, who likes Fridays, who likes Mondays. In looking at the surrounding areas, St. Croix Falls, New Richmond, they've all switched to Mondays and had great results with that. So this is the first year that we're actually gonna try out, what does a Monday feel like? Because most of the Mondays kind of attached to spring break, attached to winter break, attached to Easter, and so on, seem to fit. Our staff will be more refreshed to receive learning versus a Friday, because we do ask great things of them, as you might know. And on a Friday, by the time they get to that, especially if they've had conferences that week, they're like, eyes are already rolling back in their head. And we're saying guaranteed and viable curriculum, folks. So that's why we're gonna try it on Mondays unless there's a reason that we should not. First year. Well, it's in draft, so plenty of time for feedback. If you get any feedback, just let us know, we'll take a look. And I'm gonna stand right here, because I'm gonna keep going.
Any other questions on this one? Calendar?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm wondering how the staff feels about having that Friday in October rather than another day at the Christmas break. For example, Thursday and Friday off rather than that day in October. And I'm wondering if there could be a survey on just that question before we approve this calendar at the regular session.
So one thing to note on that is that our teachers we get to October and we are exhausted. And we have been receiving a lot of, we need a break, and we're expecting them to continue to grow. That is the time that our EE goals need to be turned in, their PPG, their SLO, and so on. And so when you design a calendar, we added back in the 23rd to give that break. But it's just, I think it'll be more conducive to the mental health and wellness of our staff as we're trying to build something that helps keep everybody fresh and primed and something to look forward to. So that day was put there because of feedback from staff, and we did have our survey that did include that and had lots of thank yous. We're looking forward to break.
That's that October 21.
Yeah.
So staff has already given that feedback.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we heard it from a lot of people.
All right, any other comments, questions? All right, open enrollment policy.
So this is just something that's been, as we are cross-training and we've had a changeover of our district office staff, we're all learning what each other's jobs are. And so as we're learning, we're finding places where we're asking questions about the why. Why do we do this? And this is one of the whys. For years and years, we've asked our families to reapply to open enroll when they cross over a building from elementary to middle or middle to high. I'm like, why? So we asked bigger questions, and we found that we're one of the only schools that still does that, because that is an option for districts to do that. It gives you a chance to say no, thank you. But we're realizing that we don't say no, thank you. And we love having people here, and we want to have continuity. So it seems like it's just paperwork and something that we have to keep track of, something parents have to do, and a major inconvenience, quite frankly. So we checked with DPI. DPS says you can, you don't have to, we don't require it. We checked with the surrounding schools. No one else seems to be doing it. So we would just like that part of the policy deleted.
So we just need to put that on our policy.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
But this is something we want done right away. We don't want to wait till this pops up, just
Yeah.
change the policy.
Yep.
I thought once that families were in open enrollment and accepted in,
So I
Say no either.
think it's in the folder, the
That's
way the
across the
language
river.
reads.
okay.
Yeah,
That's,
it reads that once they have to reapply once they enter middle school or high school one time.
okay,
So
But that's where you're getting,
okay.
that's the way it is there, and then plus, if one student's in, if there's family, siblings, they're all in too. But that's, again, the other side of that river.
Sorry, thank you.
All right, any other questions on the open enrollment policy?
So I just want to clarify, so Lori, will you need to make the change, or who coordinates making the change to the policy prior to the next meeting?
Oh, it won't be prior to the next meeting. It'll come to the next meeting and we'll approve it then, just like we do the other policy updates. We go through it at the work session and then we bring it back to the regular session for approval.
Yeah, so then once it's approved, will you, Alicia works through getting that policy changed? Okay,
Yeah, we work with Neola on that.
okay, all right.
So this would come back, you're saying this would be brought back to the March work session? This policy then
Oh,
would be?
no, the February regular session.
Okay, we can
would
just
be brought
delete that
back.
line from it?
That's not, yeah, but the policy would
Okay.
need to be updated prior and then approved there, correct?
I think we make edits on it, and then you make an approval, and then we work with Neola.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, Trish,
Here we go.
Mark, who's starting ESER 3?
Yeah, we'll start on the ESER piece, item 9 on the agenda. Just a few comments before we get going on this. And this presentation is kind of one of the hoops that that we're required to complete as part of the requirement for accessing our ESER 3 funds. There is a link attached here for public input and comment. Again, this is a presentation, kind of a hearing, so if people have ideas or thoughts on how this money should be spent, they can surely weigh in through that link, and we'll look at all the comments that are there. You know, in general, the ESER funds were issued to the state, and DPI needed to develop a plan that would be approved by the state Joint Finance Committee. ESER 1 and 2 had far less strings attached. We are projected to have about 1.1 million in aid coming in, but that has not been confirmed or finalized as of yet. You know, the state didn't give us any new dollars this year, so even with a state surplus of close to $4 billion, nearly $2.9 billion more than projected, the Joint Finance Committee told districts to use ESER funds to cover our operations with no new state money. And as you can guess, that when you get no new state money and inflation is running 4 to 7%, that's a cut to districts, as our expenditures, you know, are not immune to inflation and what have you. So again, it puts us in a very precarious situation. So it's a, you know, the perception is that we're getting all this money, but again, it's for operations to keep the machine rolling. There's not, there isn't any new innovative wild programs being thrown in here because we have this money. The things that we have implemented over the last couple of years and are maintaining are things that are dealing with student loss, learning loss, and what have you. So don't expect a plethora of new programs coming in. It's really to plug our holes in operations. You know, developing this presentation took a lot of work, and we spent a lot of time with our administrative team, you know, classifying and looking at the money we've spent and where it is and that. But the lion's share of the work is, fell on Trish and Dave, as, you know, everything is programming, which is Trish, and the finance numbers, you know, which is Dave. And it hasn't been easy. It's been like hitting a moving target over the last couple of years. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and we'll walk through the presentation.
Thanks, Mark. I'll start. Like Mark said, this is a step in the process for us to be able to claim ESER 3 money, get some of the allocation. We can't submit for claim for reimbursement of expenditures that we've made until we get our plan approved, and this is one step in the process. The stakeholder input session, that's what this is. And like Mark said, there's a couple ways, you'll see it at the end, to share feedback. There's a link where you can enter whatever comments or thoughts you have. And you can also contact Mark directly. Why we're reaching out, again, this is the community input session. Now, like I just said, it doesn't all happen right here. People have the opportunity to submit their feedback. The survey link is going to go out on Facebook, on the district website, on the school, no, the scoop, I think. It's the scoop. Yes, thanks. It's going to go out all over the place, all the places people hopefully will be looking. So, Mark mentioned all of us kind of contributing to the plan overall. And I'd like to reiterate that this current estimate of almost 1.2 million, we were told by the legislature to use this money for operations in lieu of any revenue limit increase through the state biennial budget process. And that's what we're doing. That's what our plan is, which means essentially we're operating. We're not coming up with new things. Like Mark said, we budgeted approximately 50% of this revenue to be received in the current year and about 50% next year. And that's it. Well, you can claim through September of '24. Some districts may do that.
So this is all we would get from now until then, from this fund, and we could claim it in steps, or do you get to claim it all at once? Or
We have
as
to
you
claim
use
it on a quarterly basis, but it's up to us to say, you know, these are the expenditures that fit within the plan that we submitted to get that reimbursement of the money we've already spent in that quarter. But again, this is operations for us. This is you know, keeping the cash flow going, keeping the district running. What's the money for? These slides, you'll see examples provided by US Ed and DPI. The next few slides have examples for various things. This slide does say schools must use a minimum of 20% to implement evidence-based interventions to address learning loss, and then give some examples. That is the majority of districts in the state of Wisconsin. It's 20%, but based on how our allocation was calculated, the main calculation across the state for every district, the first calculation for your district's allocation is based on county poverty. And so for districts in our area, that is a low amount. We were calculated to receive a small amount. And so there's some additional calculations that will increase revenue for a district. The next one being a per student, a per member count, minimum dollar per member. So we receive money for that. And then we get if you think back to last year when we had to report all of our in-person minutes, where some districts were closed all year and some districts were open like we were all year. That's another component that Joint Finance added, so that is our third component of revenue. All of that adding up to be the almost 1.2 million. But coming back to this percentage, the 20% requirement for a district that gets only the Title I calculation, think of a Unity or a Spooner, gets that full amount, only 20% of that they have to use for EBIS. Whereas us, 20% of that calculation we have to use as well, but then 100% of our next two allocations we have to use for that. And so you'll see later on in the presentation some of the methods that we kind of have to quantify this for our plan and for our claiming, because again, we're just operating based on our data, based on what we know about our needs here. So it is, like Mark said, there's some hoops to jump through, but we're moving forward in order to receive this funding. Here again, some examples specifically mentioned in the USDA guidance: disproportionately impacted student groups. Other examples of things ESSER money can be used for: preparedness and response, addressing long-term school closure, outreach and services for special populations, mental health services and supports, educational technology. You'll see in a couple slides, what, again, we're saying in our plan, this is what we're doing as part of our operations that we can fit into these categories that we've provided as examples.
Okay, so as Dave said, we've been planning for these funds for quite a while. When ESSER 1 first came out, we already started preparing for ESSER 1, we knew about ESSER 2, we knew about ESSER 3, and we were trying to figure out how does that fit in Somerset based on our needs and different needs assessments that we've done, which is part of the plan. You have to share actual links to what needs assessments have you done across your campus to show where the money would be best spent. So as we looked at our needs across our district, we found some of these areas when we're talking about learning loss. Reading achievement in students in grades 1 through 6 has been relatively flat. We've seen a sharp decrease though in ELA district-wide with an emphasis on speaking and listening. So that's one thing as a district we're really putting time and effort into, especially as we're moving through our new ELA adoption. Need for learning recovery in grades 9 through 11 related to math achievement. We've talked about that in this room many times. We're putting a lot of effort, energy, and strategic planning around how to best support that goal. Extended learning opportunities for our students within the school day and across the span of our calendar year, trying to make up for that learning loss based on different assessments that we're giving in school. A need for engaging students by meeting their social, emotional, and mental health. That is something we have seen both in our staff, our students, and our community. And then promoting positive learning environments for staff and students. We know COVID has been a hard time for a lot of families, a lot of folks, and for a lot of organizations. So these are some of our main needs that when we looked at ESSER 3 fit beautifully into the allowable expenses. So when we look at addressing those expenses, Dave's already talked about that 20% that needed to go to evidence-based intervention strategies. For us, it's not 20%, it's about 78% based on the formula calculation. What we are proposing, or we would like to use this on, some things that have already been taking place on campus because of our needs assessments. So that high-quality comprehensive ELA resource for K-5, district reading specialist, instructional coach, district mental health coordinator all fit within the allowable expenses. Math coaching and professional developments for grades 9 through 12 in order to really pump up, get the rigor, and make sure we're meeting the gaps as well as our future needs for our students. High-quality assessment and data tools along with professional development, how to use them. All of these things fit into the allowable expenses and would address the needs of our students. Other places and other priorities, custodial, of course, maintaining that clean environment. Our health aides, full-time substitutes. We did that last year with 3 on campus. It was a lifesaver. This year we have 2 on campus. Can't say enough about them. We are short every day. Every day is a struggle to cover, and we know continuity of learning really depends on that highly trained person in the classroom. We'll be using it for that. Know Before is an integrated platform that we brought on this year for security awareness. What it does is it tests our system and our users to see if you're going to click on something that could get us in a place where we don't want to go. So it is a platform that we can also use to push out other trainings. For example, all of our required trainings, our mandatory trainings in the beginning of the school year. So, and it keeps track of who's done what for liability purposes, how they've done, and what frequency they've done it. Go Guardian is an online safety program that our teachers can use with working with Chromebooks, especially because they can see what's on their screens when they're in the classroom. They can monitor and keep them safe from sites they shouldn't go to. They can also push out instructional material to all Chromebooks. It really helps with that cybersecurity as well as security for our students and instructional materials. And if you can squint your eyes in the dark blue at the very bottom, cybersecurity itself to maintain technology integrity throughout our systems. We're bringing on something called Sentinel-1, which is kind of a ginormous security net for our system, as well as security monitoring of our systems. You'll hear more about those a little bit later. So these are some of the places where the rest of that allocation can be spent that fit the allowable costs that also fit our needs, which is what we're looking for. The other part of ESSER 3 is that we have to have a plan for safe return to schools. This component of ESSER 3 has already occurred in August when Mark, the principals, others had the community in to talk about how we can have a safe return to schools. We had to have a plan. The plan has to be published, and that is currently on our website. The plan also has to be reviewed, so that will be coming due pretty soon, where people can give input on how it's going. I put a link to the plan here, but you can also find it on our website. Where do we go from here? Now it's time to have some feedback from our stakeholders. We created a survey that just gathers names, email addresses, and gives you places where you can comment on the components that we have to have as part of our ESSER 3 plan. We'll make sure that is out and about as many places as we can for our stakeholders to take a look at, send in any thoughts that they have. We have the school perceptions parent survey Mark's going to be addressing later that also has COVID concerns in it, learning loss concerns in it, that our parents and our staff and some of our students will be able to give feedback. We'll look at that feedback as well. And then, of course, email Dr. Bezek.
Thank you.
That's a quick and easy way to get some feedback to him. So we'll look at those 3 pieces as we are moving forward to kind of formulate how we can best serve our students and our community and create an organization that really takes care of all of our students and our staff. Our final ESSER 3 plan needs to be submitted by the end of March. Plenty of time. And then our safe return plan also, which is already complete, is on our district website.
Are there requirements? So I think a lot of the questions out there right now are the safe return plan. Is there certain requirements that say we have to change the safe return plan that's already out there?
No, just
No.
again, feedback, presenting, and then feedback, how's it going? It's just the monitoring. It's to ensure that we're constantly monitoring. We're not one and done. So like with any of the needs assessments that we do across campus, you want to make sure you're constantly going back and revisiting them. So that's the point of that one.
So one of the other questions that I've heard a lot of, and you addressed it with the prior slide, was following the recommendations established by the CDC. And I brought this up quite a few times, and I'm going to bring it up again. You know, right on the CDC website, it states that the PCR test we're using to find positive and negative tests doesn't work. They put that out July 21st, 2021, and it said as of December 31st, 2021, they're saying not to use the tests. But we're still using the tests. And so, you know, I'm really concerned that that's going to be our standard. We're following the CDC, who's telling us right on their own website, the standard we're using to test doesn't work. So, you know, I know there's been a lot of pushback from parents, and I'm 100% on board. That should not be where we're going to get our information. We need to be looking at what's happening locally, what's happening within our school. I really don't harbor a lot of faith in the CDC at this point when their website is telling us not to.
And those are things that would be addressed in the survey, right, as you...
There are questions in the
change.
survey about COVID policy. I think Mark's going to walk you right through it in another
Okay.
section here.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll get a nice close look at what's in the survey, plus the fact by every 6 months we have to have some feedback on our COVID protocols as well. I know that Abby and Ryan and Mark and the health aides have been reviewing and making tweaks here and there, so trying to be responsive to what's current and what's out there and what's working for us. Good news is our numbers are going down right now. A lot of our absences out there are not because of COVID, so that's really good news with our staff as well, so certainly that should be considered.
Another question, so just to help me understand the ESSER 1, 2, and 3. So the 1.1 million, that's allocated based on enrollment, population? Where does that number come from?
Yeah, so it's largely based on, for us, our pupil count. For all districts, the biggest factor is poverty in the county. And so that's why Somerset, Hudson, et cetera, had low initial allocations. But then if your allocation wasn't up to a certain per pupil membership count amount, then this additional plan, which is yet to be finalized, gave us a minimum per member. And then on top of that, we also got an additional amount because we were in school last year in person rather than remote for the whole time.
And if a district doesn't take it, is that, because the district doesn't have to take this money, right, across the state?
It's up to us to ask to get reimbursed, yeah?
But is that, so if a district didn't take it and there's money left over, does that get allocated again then? What happens to that money?
I think that,
I don't know a superintendent alive that does not turn down money.
Well, I agree,
What
I'm
if?
trying to understand what, that's all.
Yeah.
I would assume that'd be a joint finance committee discussion and proposal, but yeah, I don't know that we worry about that.
And it's really, it's so disproportionate. You know, there's smaller districts than us getting 2 or 3 times what we're getting. I was just looking at some news clips here. One of the larger districts to the east here has like, it's $19 million. What should we do with it? You know, it's just, but they have high rates of poverty, and you know, that's where all the money goes.
Anything else?
So this discussion isn't stopped, with that feedback that is given, will we be seeing any of that as well, just to be?
Yeah, we'll look at it all and bring it back. It's just, you know, one caveat though is that, again, if feedback comes in, no, let's spend it over here, get ready to cut some programs and people to redo that. I mean, there's only certain things we have money for, and again, as I preface this, you know, this money is for our operations, and what the state did to us by not giving us any new money really, again, cut us 4 to 7%, whatever, you know, you want to factor inflation is, because all of our contracts and vendors and, you know, salaries and what have you, is going this way, where our purchasing power is less and less, so we got to come up with it somewhere. A simple explanation.
DPI does have a website with more information. As Corey alluded to, it's a lot, and it's a lot of other links to other things, and so it's pretty deep, but it does have lists of allowable expenses. It does have the process that you have to go through and has samples of plans. So you can take a look if you're interested, or we'll keep you posted. And thank you.
Lori or Marge, do you have any additional comments, questions?
No, I don't. Nope, it was a very thorough presentation, thank you.
You're welcome.
One last thing, Dave, do you anticipate one initial large payment to kind of make almost back date for the stuff we've already paid, or?
So you saw we can go back to March of 2020, but we'll stay within this fiscal year.
I mean, so would you say, you know, we are 1.1, 1.2 million, would we put in for roughly, you know, could we do like 700,000 right away and then quarterly, whatever we spend that quarter?
So budgeted about half. We'll see how it goes
Okay.
as the year progresses, especially with heating and such. But as soon as our plan is approved, fully approved and into the WISE grants, which is the financial portal, then I'll claim as much as we can up to that point, because we won't have expended enough to make that big of a claim that fits within the plan parameters. We're using our operations generally, but it has to be within these guidelines and stipulations that Trish kind of laid out.
Okay.
So that total dollar amount, as soon as we can, I will request reimbursement for as much as we can within the plan.
Okay, thanks, Trish and Dave.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, district health update, Mark.
Yeah, so as Trish mentioned there very quickly is that, you know, we're seeing numbers around everywhere dropping down as far as what we're seeing out there. And so we're changing our protocols here in the district. And this, you know, we start talking about CDC or DHS or St. Croix County Health, you know, from the get-go on this, the whole pandemic, we've done a lot of pushing back. We haven't just said, you know what, this is what they say, this is what we have to do. I think St. Croix County Health was very annoyed with the superintendents in the region here because we took what, you know, took that information over here, then what we're seeing is reality and tweaked what we needed to do to get through this. So what we're recommending now, what we're moving to is for any positive case, vaccinated or not, it's a 5-day quarantine piece. Coming back to school, there was I don't know whose regulations were masking for 5 days, that's optional. We'll request it, but if it's parents' choice. If they don't wanna do that, so vaccinated or not, if they're positive, it's 5 days out. And if there's any close contacts in the family, if they're non-symptomatic, they can come back. Again, that's parents' call, but if they come back and they're symptomatic, they're going home. You know, we're not gonna take that chance.
But the same thing after 5 days, as long as you're not symptomatic, or if it's 5 days.
With a
If
test.
you're still symptomatic, you don't have to take a test to come back, or do you?
No.
After 5, so as long as you're not symptomatic,
Right.
you can come back.
Right, and, because if you come back and you're symptomatic, we
Right.
just gotta, there's some districts that are just throwing everything out right now and say, hey, war's over with, what have you. I don't think, a lot of us at CISA aren't that convinced, so we're taking a step down. So again, a lot more parent choice in this. So right now, the only 5-day for sure is if there's a positive case vaccinated or not. And then the rest is basically parent choice. And parents also have the choice of quarantining for 10 days if they want, and it won't be held against them. We've had that also too. So, we're still, moving with choice, but we still want to protect what we have. Our numbers have really dropped quite a bit. When we started, that brings us into the testing site here. We're monitoring that closely because I envision an end to that fairly quickly. The first week we had it in place, we had a 32% positivity rate in the testing. This last week, we're down to 15%. So it's dropping, significantly. I think Hudson hasn't had a case in 2 weeks now. So again, it's either people aren't reporting or testing or what have you, but, they're, again, a lot of districts are just shutting down everything and moving like the common cold, so to speak. I don't want to make light of it, but that's the trend they're moving. Over the testing center site, we've tested almost 300 people with about 20% on the average positivity rate. So, we're looking at the numbers and they're dropping. So another week or two, we'll see what, it's getting better and better. So we'll see where that goes, and we can, eliminate it at any time. And that was the goal from the get-go. As soon as we don't need it anymore, we won't do it. So
Are we still using the PCR test?
they're using the rapid PCR, and St. Croix County's got some other data, and I wish I would have brought it here because I just saw this 2 weeks ago in one of our meetings that the PCR is, I hope I don't get this wrong, the first day of symptoms is 87% effective, second day it's 92% effective, and that's what St. Croix County had. Again, I wish I would have had that in front of me, but it was on some of their data that they handed out to us. I don't know, Abby, if you've heard anything.
I don't, but we use the both. We use the rapid and the PCR, and we function off the results that they get from the rapid test
Yeah.
right away.
But I think the data that I was talking about was from the PCR, and I thought it was kind of surprising, and that's why it kind of stuck in my head cage here a little bit, and I can go back into the presentations and find out for sure. So again, good thing is we're dropping very limited. We had no cases over the weekend, that's a first. So again, we're moving pretty quickly through this.
And when you were talking about quarantining, so that's taking off any of the piece with vaccinated or unvaccinated?
Correct, yeah.
So
It doesn't make
that
any difference
is
if you're
no
vaccinated
longer-
or not.
Okay,
If you have a positive test, you're 5 days.
okay.
But the
So-
family member, positive case, family member, there's no question of vaccinated, not vaccinated, it's parent
No,
choice.
it's just if you're symptomatic,
If you're sick, stay
parent
home.
choice. And if they come, they're
Yeah.
symptomatic, they're going home.
Yeah.
So, again, so we're moving from the extreme pieces of this to, our goal is to start treating it like a common cold, which again, it's more severe than common cold, but again, just the way we are processing right now.
And when will that go into place?
Tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Um,
So do we have any current cases in the district right now?
As far, I think we had, what did we got?
9, very few.
Yeah, it's, like I say, we didn't have any over the weekend, which is unusual, so, but we're really in that I think student cases, or staff cases 1 or 2, and student cases 4 or 5.
Yeah, one staff member right now, and then 3 students?
Yeah, it's, I think he did say 4
4.
cases in the district, so that's significant.
You had said 300 approximately have used the tool.
Yeah, we've
Is
tested
that just the
200
number, is that's going down as well? Not
Well, we
necessarily
test
percentage,
we
but-
test around 40 to 45 people a week. That's what we've been testing. The positivity rate is the one to,
Okay.
percentage is the one that we want to track, because it's dropped from 32% to 15%.
Okay.
So what does it have to drop to for us to say it's no longer necessary?
Well, we don't have a set number there, so we'll see what, if they keep dropping in half like this, I anticipate maybe another week of the clinic. We'll see what happens this week. Yeah, this is the first time we haven't had anything over a Monday, from the weekend, so.
And is it still open the same amount of hours, or?
It is.
Okay.
It is, and again, it's not costing us anything, and that's one of our options too. We could, say, hey, we're gonna go down to once a week or twice a week. Again, we're gonna see what this week's holds, and then we're making this change now. We'll evaluate it again at the end of the week and see where we're at. And throughout the CISA district, most of the district are doing what we're doing right now. There's some, again, that just, we're done with it. We're returning to normal, so.
Right, any other questions from Bezick? Marjorie, Lori, any questions?
Not right
Nope,
now,
I think they're doing a good, I think they're doing a good job.
Great.
Thank you.
Next, facility?
Yeah, with the facilities group, we won't be meeting again until early March. We're in a phase right now. The group has identified projects that we want to investigate further. So right now, Wold and Johnson, Mark and Johnson are costing out so we can get some ballpark on what some of these projects are going to run us. And in-house here, we're working with PMA. We've got a meeting with them to talk over tax implications and finance strategies as far as how, what does it come to on your house? How much you're gonna pay a month or a year, what have you, because that's typically what'll tip the scales one way or another. And then we've also got a couple meetings with some joint powers opportunities, which means some alternative funding for some of these pieces that we've talked about. And that's I don't want to say too much more about that, but we've got some groups we're working with that may surprise us on that front. So that's all I have in the facility piece.
Okay.
So, I want to talk about the school perceptions, the survey that we're doing, and it's, I'm going to take a little bit of time here and walk through a few things, kind of explain to our audience also just what we're up to with the survey and what to expect with it. So, the history of it really came about with questionings about the flex mod schedule at the high school, and also about some of our low performing scores at the high school. And as the board knows, but one of my goals is always around student achievement. And this year we focused more on student achievement at the high school, and I just want to read that goal real quickly so people have an understanding where we're coming from. The main focus of the goal for the 21-22 school year is to look at barriers to student learning at the high school. High school moved to the flex mod schedule during 18-19 school year. The schedule has come under fire over the past couple of years from a variety of directions. COVID and the implementation dip are definitely mitigating circumstances. However, all area schools have been dealing with COVID. Also, we've been trending down over the past 4 or 5 years. I'll be using a series of information gathering techniques with teachers, students, parents to determine what are some of the barriers to student achievement at the high school. Once this data is received, we'll develop the action plans to implement needed strategies to increase student achievement. And the process that we're working through is kind of a 3-step process. The first one was to meet with the high school staff, do an environmental scan, which really included talking about barriers to increase student achievement, things that affect their individual classrooms, what kind of stress are they under the last couple of years, what's going well in the buildings, what can we change ASAP, which means for second semester, and then conducted a follow-up survey with the high school staff. Now that step one has been completed, and I have the results of that survey. But that I'm not gonna do anything with as far as presentation-wise until we get school perceptions. I don't wanna skew the school perception survey with the data that comes, from the one I did. Mine's not official, it's more of an unofficial survey. Step two is with school perceptions. That's the phase we're in right now. We're gonna be surveying the 9 through 12 students regarding learning environment in the flex mod, surveying the parents regarding pre-K through 12 learning environment, and also the staff. Step three is when we get the information back in March, and these loose dates here, we'll analyze that information, then we'll look at some action plans as far as what we find from that data. So once we receive the data from school perceptions, we'll make some adjustments where needed. Some of the changes that, some changes have been already made for second semester due to the data I collected from the staff survey and the staff meeting. I met with Shannon. We walked through some of the concerns and issues that they had, and she's made several changes to the schedule and the way they operate going into the second semester. I worked the last couple of months with Rob Demuse from School Perceptions, and you'll meet him over the format and how can we create and keep integrity of the survey through the whole process as we go through this. So I've been very protective of this process. This is working with the administrative team and taking all things into account that we've heard from parents, from some of our listening sessions, from some of the open forum pieces, board members' comments. I worked with Rob in creating the survey, believing that it's going to encompass all these different topics that we want to find information on. But again, I've been very protective of this to not skew the survey anyway. And I'm giving you the opportunity to just say, that's BZIC survey, because when we put something like this out, it's going to get criticized, and you guys don't need to take shots on this. Let it come this way. But I have worked very closely with the administrative team. Again, Shannon and I have worked very closely on this with the questions pertaining to the high school, and we feel that we've got a set of questions here that's really going to get parent, student, and staff input. And again, I'm going to go through these in a little bit here. The 5 areas we're collecting data on are the overall learning environment in the buildings, and this is K-12, the flex mod schedule at the high school, possible future referendum projects from our strategic plan. Year-round school is one of our pieces in there, so we're going to see how the people feel about that. And then our COVID strategies, basically how do we do? What do you think? What can we do better, or what have you? So they're grouped in 3 different groups here, and I'm going to walk through them. Just give you an overview so you can kind of see what some of these pieces look like. One group is to the parents and the caregivers. Then there's a separate survey to the staff, and then a separate one to the 9th, 12th students. So I'm going to walk through this parent caregiver survey. It starts out where, which is very important when parents check into this, they identify with elementary, middle school, high school. That all of a sudden sends them into different directions as far as what they have access to. So they will do that. So an example in the elementary school, if you just have elementary students, you'll answer questions about school climate, overall learning, and connections as far as do my kids feel connected? Do I have avenues to talk to people? The middle school parents will have the same opportunity with those types of questions, and then the same with the high school. But if you do click high school, then you're gonna go into you'll get a section on the flex mod scheduling. And it'll say respond to the following questions. And I'll just, some of these, they go from strongly agree to strongly disagree. I understand how flex mod schedule works. I understand why we use a flex mod. Flex mod has helped my children. Overall, my children like the flex mod system. The second set of questions, what are some of the benefits of the flex mod schedule? Next one is, are there any other benefits to it? Then it gets into what are some of the challenges of the flex mod, and it goes through several options there. And then are there any other challenges to the flex mod schedule? So it gives them an opportunity to respond, positive, negative, what have you. And again, I work real close with Shannon as far as what information would really help you learn, how the system is working. Let's see. And then they ask questions about staff, about access to reliable internet outside of school, and some other basic questions there. And again, so if you check in as a high school student or parent, you'll get these questions here. But also, all the parents will get a chance to comment on what we call this policy and calendar section, and it asks a question about cell phone usage, because one of the things we identified in my survey and work with the staff is they say one of the biggest barriers to in the school is the use of cell phones. And it's no surprise, you look at these kids, what they've gone through the last couple of years, they're at home a lot. And so how are they connected? Right here, but it's bleeding over in a negative way into the school. And I know Shannon's done some work on limiting that time. So parents will be able to comment on that, which may lead us to some policies down the road as far as what we allow in school or not. The other piece I mentioned before is about year-round schooling. One of our last pieces on our strategic plan asks about should we investigate year-round schooling, which is basically a 45-15 type calendar, 9 weeks on, 3 weeks off. And the joke kind of is with our high numbers in summer school, we basically have year-round school. Do we want to formalize it? So we're going to ask parents here, do they want to see that happen? Then all the parents get the COVID check-in, and questions that we have there, please indicate your level of agreement. And these are questions, again, working with Rob from School Perceptions, a lot of these questions that we put that we wanted, he changed to norm them with questions from other districts across their surveying areas, so we have some norming going on here. And these are some of the COVID questions that they've been using in other surveys. The district clearly communicates with me about COVID-19 related issues. Strongly agree to disagree. I understand the process the district is using to make decisions to COVID. If my family had a COVID related issue, the district's leadership was responsive. My family has been able to support my children's learning this year. And again, another open-ended comments, suggestions to improve instruction during the pandemic. So almost on every question we have, there's an open-ended piece there for people to comment if they don't feel that the question specifically addressed their need. Another one that everyone will get is facility planning. Now, we've met a couple times with our facilities group, and they've identified 5 projects that we'd like to start looking at and costing out. And so we're asking, we get about a paragraph describing the past referendum and why we're looking at the facilities, because we had to drop that second half off last time, and why we're looking at the activities portion of it. So it's basically a series of questions. Would I support building an auditorium / performing arts center? Would you support building an additional gym / field house? Would you support renovating the stadium and track? Would you support an ice arena on campus? Would you support building softball and baseball complex on campus? So those are the questions that we're going to test. And again, the strategy here is that your parents are typically a positive group on supporting pieces like this here. So if they come back highly supported, then we know we've got 5 projects that we need to investigate more. If they're not, if our yes group isn't supportive of them, then we know we've got to take a look at some of these. So that's the strategy behind that question there. Then, okay, so that's the parents survey or caregiver survey. So you understand that when they check in, depending on what age they are, if they check in as high school parents, they'll be able to comment on the flex mod. The middle school and elementary parents will not be able to, just so you're clear on that.
Quick question about
Yep.
that. If you have two kids, one in the middle school.
You'll get access to it if you check in with both.
So you can
If
check
say-
both?
Yep.
Okay.
If you say you have an elementary and a high school
Yep.
student, you should have access to it. That's,
Okay.
And the intended audience is one parent from the family? Any parents, if you have a split household, maybe there's, 4 parents, 4 caregivers to 1 student.
yeah. So typically what happens in situations like that, it's just like grades or what have you, or any important notices. If they're on the student's parent list, whatever, they'll get it.
Each person.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they'll get it. So I'll just quickly run through the staff one. Talks about are you a classroom teacher, what building you're in. They'll ask questions about the workday, about your working environment, support, do you get the support you need? They'll get the COVID questions, so we'll get information from them. And the high school staff will get the flex mod piece, which some of these questions it'll be interesting because some of the questions are the same from what I used on my survey, and I got feedback, but again, I don't want to taint this survey with putting anything out there. They'll get the question about the cell phones and about the year-round schooling and also the facility planning. Now the students, the 9th grade students will get questions, just some demographic information as far as grade, what are you going to do after high school. They'll get questions about classes and teachers as far as what your experience is. They get questions about the flex mod schedule in here, the students do, so they can comment on it. A little bit about life at school, people around me as far as friends and support systems. Talk about their learning, homework, more questions about the flex mod schedule in there. And that is it. So we're covering all the groups, and from this information here coupled with what I have, I think the questions that I've heard at this table here, community questions, I think we're gonna have some really good data. And we're ready to launch at any time unless there's any major objections to this. And again, I'm giving you pliable deniability. So basic survey, so go to him.
What's the timeline? So you said you're ready to launch anytime, how long is the open for?
Yeah, so the calendar right here is, so I kinda messed up by a week because I thought we had a board meeting last week. I mean, we all did, I think. I came Monday, are you ready for a board meeting? Oh, it's not till next week. So I'm off by a week, but, so we're just reviewing this tonight. I'm meeting with Rob tomorrow. And then we're able to push it out here within the next week or so, because what we typically do is give a heads up email to all the parents, say, hey, watch for this is coming, so you don't miss it. And he's looking at early March for the reports, and middle of March to give a report to the district. So depending on what comes out of this, we'll be developing strategies for next year. So again, from what I know from staff survey and all that, it'll be interesting to see what we find from the other groups also. But I can say that, over the course of the last few months, Shannon and I talked a lot, and there's been some noticeable changes that have gone into creating the second semester schedule and that, so.
So that group analyzed all the data and they
That's
put the report together?
Yep, so that's why I want to keep it out of our hands, so the integrity of the survey isn't, considered flawed by, like if we did the survey, because in the past, I think the questions were, Shannon, will you survey your parents and what have you? Anytime you do an in-house survey, it's always open to suspect, and, not that people are devious or anything, but it just is, so. School perceptions, we've used them in the past, we've got good data from them in the past, and again, it's worth taking that step.
I have more of a clarifying, and I think you've already talked about this, but it was just some something that I've heard. You're putting the referendum, the possible referendum questions on there, but it's not only parents that will have feedback on this. This is just the people that will support. Taxpayers will still get feedback at a point.
Yeah, so, good question here, Lacey. Typically what we will do before any referendum, we will send one out to all the people in the community to weigh in on that, And again, knowing that this is going to our parents, the assumption is that it's should be very positive, we would
Right.
hope. But if it isn't, that tells us something. Because when you go to a wider group, it's not gonna be as positive as typical parents are. But yes, and that would be the survey that, for board members, I would say you would base your decisions off of, because it's again, this survey may eliminate one or two things. It just may. But that next survey, when we drill down, that's the one that you really gotta think hard about. Do we have the support here or not?
And that next survey will go to everybody.
That survey will go to everyone, and that probably will take place sometime in June maybe, because you don't have to make a decision until August. So I would say late May, first part of June, that would go out, you'd have that information back in, we'd have all of our numbers ready, our tax impacts, and, then we have time to make some decisions. So.
Sheree or Michelle, anything?
No.
Marge or Lori, do you have any other questions or comments?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle and Lacey. You asked two of the questions I had, but I have another one regarding the flex mod schedule at the high school. Is there any question about conflicts in classes that overlap, which cause students to leave a class early or arrive at another class late?
I have that data. You and I talked a little bit before about that. I have that data, and those were a couple of questions that Rob from School Perceptions said that we'll get that information out of some of these questions that are on here.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Marge, do you have
I think
any?
that it's great, yeah, I think it's great that it covers so many different areas, because it's a lot nicer to do it like this than to send out 15 or 20 surveys on different topics, so this is great.
And I like the open-ended, because I know that was some of the feedback at a listening session, just, okay, this maybe question doesn't answer it, but there's always that area that you can put that feedback, so.
Mark, do you have any dollar amount that you're gonna put in that facility survey or portion?
No, not at this point in time.
I guess
Yeah.
I just, are you
That'll-
supportive of this or this or this?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm in support of them, but if it's $100 million, I'm probably not in support of them.
Well, we know it's not $100 million.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, sort of,
99.
we know,
Yeah.
are you, $40, $100? Or
Right, and that's what we're all trying to find out right now, but again, we just wanna see if there's a general feeling of, the group that got together, I mean, very positive on all these pieces here, but we know we gotta come down a funnel somewhere, and the big thing will be, tax increases, and just, there was a comment made, I don't know, Lacey, who made the comment about, we talked about our last referendum, the facilities bond, our bonding tax levy or, cost to taxpayers did not go up. I mean, it stayed flat. People said, well, we noticed a rise in our school, in our taxes. That's the operations side that went up, and that's always going to have inflationary bumps and things like that. But as far as the bonding work we did, that remained flat. And that's not gonna be the case this time. I hate to say that, last time the stars lined up and it worked out well for that $28.6 million bond. But, with this one, there will be a tax piece, but then it just comes on how we structure it and, how the stars line up again.
All right, well, if no one has any other comments, we'll have Mr. Weiland. Right?
Yeah.
All right. So you want to go through it, or?
Why don't you go to the podium there, okay?
Okay. All right, hello. Thanks for allowing me some time to address you with that our family is wishing you to consider our request to change the school district boundary lines. I know that on the link there's all kinds of information with like shots of the maps and everything that for you to kind of peruse and look at in our application and such on there. My understanding is that you'll be discussing this today and then looking at taking action, I think, at your next board meeting on the 28th, I think is what that is. But just to kind of give my statement, our 2 cents here that my wife and I had talked about. We've been living at our address, which is 362 Valley View Trail, since we built our home there almost 5 years ago. Our daughter actually open enrolls into the Hudson School District, which we've been doing the whole time. Right now, she's currently attending Holton Elementary, which is just a few miles down the road from us there. I myself am also a teacher at Hudson High School, so I've been in the district now for quite some time. As you know, when you look at the maps on the property there, you can see that our property lies right on the district line, right along Valley View Trail and Highway E there, right where you see the Hudson and Somerset School Districts meet. So one of our big things, we are realizing that we would not be creating an island, so we're kind of hoping that that favors us, and we're not trying to like cut in and it makes some kind of random island out there that makes it difficult to kind of look at that. Every day we actually happen to see the Hudson School District bus actually drives literally right in front of our house. They drive down Valley View and looks like they're kind of coming through the Somerset School District, picking up some kids, and then we see it drive by our house every single day. So we're really hoping to take advantage of that for our daughter there. And with that, I guess I'm just hoping that you take some time to consider what we're asking, and thank you for allowing me to come here and address you. I appreciate it. I don't know if you have anything else you want to ask me here.
So in looking at the map, green is the Somerset School District, yellow is the Hudson School District, correct?
I believe so. I don't have that.
Okay. It's literally across the road from you. It jaunts like a mile up Valley View and then turns into Hudson again, correct?
Yep, that's correct there, yeah. Yeah, green is Somerset and yeah, yellow is Hudson there. I mean, she's got classmates that are right there across the road from us, so. That's correct.
I see a little bus drives by my house every day.
Can I ask the reason you open enroller, is it because you work there?
Yeah, my wife's also a teacher in Clear Lake too, so to have 3 different school calendars just seemed like a nightmare to us. So we just decided to open enroll her to Hudson, so that way then when she's just older, she's just in the same building as I, so. Yeah, but even before we used to live in Woodville, and she would actually go with my wife to Clear Lake too, just so we were on the Baldwin-Woodville schedule too, so.
Yeah, if you moved in the east part of Somerset, you solve a lot of issues.
What do you teach in Hudson?
Tech Ed. Yep.
You say second grade? Or what?
She's in 5th grade right now.
No, you teach?
I teach high school.
High school
Tech Ed, technology education, shop classes, engineering, things like that.
I used to live right down the road from you, not even a half a mile, and I always thought it was interesting because yes, you'd see school buses going every which direction.
Yep.
And you've got the little island of yellow right there in the middle of all the Somerset and.
Right.
That's what I was noticing.
Yeah.
So it, like, that's not even.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always kind of unique when you look at those maps.
Anybody have any other questions or comments?
So I'm just not super familiar with if this happens. So then, if you were to move someday, then that piece of property is always zoned Hudson School District.
Yeah. Yeah, once it's gone.
Once it's gone, okay.
They could petition back in if they wanted.
And Hudson would have to
Well,
say.
they'd have to petition out of Hudson.
Yeah, out of
Yep.
Hudson.
Into the process of releasing this property to Hudson, do you have to be accepted by Hudson too?
Yeah, that is another thing.
So is that the next part? So like, let's say we release you and then they say, no, we don't want you, then where do you go? Homeschool.
My understanding is we would appeal the decision to DPS.
Okay.
I thought they had to go to Hudson first.
I believe it's actually happening tonight too.
Yeah, I think you have to go to them, they have to accept you, and then, because that's how it's worked before. is people
I'm on the
petition
agenda
us,
of both school boards.
and then,
Because they may not want to take you.
they might not.
That's why we were wondering where he goes if we let him go and then Hudson doesn't take him.
I'm sure Hudson will take it, yeah.
Again, that's another one of those, no superintendent in the world, but
Yeah.
Once it's,
All right.
what further questions?
So then action item on our next meeting?
right.
Okay.
Yep. And I'll give you some more information on just the process we've used in the past for that.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank
Ann.
you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right, next one, topics for action. Does anybody make a motion to approve any and/or all of the items listed in 14?
I make a motion to approve 14A, 1B, 1, and C.
Second.
I'll second.
Any questions on any of those items? All right. Again, like we always do, but thank you for the donations, both of those. Again, appreciate that. If there's no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Let's run the table. Matt, you want to start?
I have nothing.
Lacey? Sheree?
So the one donation was anonymous, the other was FNC Bank, so just by name, I want to thank them. That is wonderful. Also, congratulations to the dance team on taking 4th place at state in their hip hop routine. And best of luck to the cheer team that's going to state this coming weekend in Oshkosh. And also congratulations to Ryan for getting Assistant Coach of the Year by the Wisconsin Hockey Association.
Right.
No, she covered it, so I'm good.
Okay. Marge, do you have anything?
No.
Lori?
Yeah, there's 2 meetings coming up in April at CISA. Mark, I believe you got more information about them. One is on April 6th and one is on April 20th, so we have time to talk more about it next month. And then in the survey, you talked about, you mentioned year-round school. That was one of our strategic plan items that we're still looking at. And usually around this time of year, we get a summer school report. I'm wondering if that's going to be on the next work session.
Well, yeah, it sure can be. It sure can be. We're just in the process of setting everything up, so we should have something to report by then. And, you know, part of the calendar was, was intricate in that too, as far as when we start summer school. But it looks like we'll be starting at the second week, the second week of, the week after we get out of school. So.
And I know that our numbers probably, well, they may not be as high as they used to be because of the whole COVID situation, but I've been hearing a lot of comments about the week off in July causing both staff and families' participation to be reduced.
Taking a whole week off the 4th of July week, you're saying? Because we shut down that week? Or not taking that week off?
You know, it hadn't been done in the past. We did it, I think we shut down last year. And, you know, again, off the top of my head, I can't remember if we surveyed, you know, the staff as far as what they want. You know, we've had plenty of people willing to teach. and asked them for input, as far as what they wanted to see in a calendar. And again, I just wasn't just not ready to answer that right now, because I'd have to look it up again and see. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I don't have anything. So I guess I'll make a motion to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute, section 19.851C, for the purpose of considering the employment and/or compensation of a public employee over whom the board has jurisdiction. Any second?
I will second.
Sheree? All's in favor?
Aye.
Well, we need to do a roll call vote for this, I think.
All right, is that done by me? Or is it Alicia?
Alicia.
You can do it because I think Alicia's going to be shutting down, right?
All right, Matt?
Yes.
Lacey?
Yes.
Sheree?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Bruce, yes. Lori?
Yes.
Marge?
Yes.
All right. Okay,
You have those notes on that? You will then adjourn, I'll take notes on the closed session, correct?
Yep,
And we're shut down and everything else?
not yet, no. So 7:47.